Scaling Up Nation, Trace Blackmore here with some mind-blowing news that'll make your job a whole lot easier. 3 industry titans, Masters Company, Radical Polymers, and MFG Chemical have joined forces to create your ultimate one-stop shop for your water treatment needs. We're talking over 60 years of Masters Company's expertise in private label products and cutting-edge test kits. Radical Polymers' game-changing Inisha additives, and MFG Chemical's custom manufacturing prowess. These American companies are bringing you top-notch quality and reliability all under one umbrella. From blending and ultra-concentrates to specialized polymers and custom solutions, they've got you covered. And with multiple AWT Supplier of the Year awards between them, you know you're getting the best of the best. Ready to revolutionize your water treatment game? Head over to scalinguph2o.com/MFG. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/MFG. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. Hey there, Scaling Up Nation. Trace Blackmore here, and I'm excited to share with you how Aquaphoenix Scientific is revolutionizing water data management. Save time, improve efficiency, reduce reporting time, and improve customer relationships while also ensuring compliance with Aquaphoenix's Aliquot. The Aliquot cloud-based platform streamlines reporting and compliance, making data collection and analysis easier than ever for you and your teams. When it comes to water treatment, efficiency is everything. That's why having all of your data at your fingertips, effortlessly organized and analyzed, saves you time and allows you to make better decisions. With Aliquot, you can focus on what matters most, optimizing your operations and ensuring compliance. This means less time spent on paperwork and more time improving your water treatment program. Whether you're managing multiple sites or just one location, Aliquot helps you stay on top of your data. Head over to scalinguph2o.com/APS. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/APS. Aquaphoenix Scientific, your one-stop solution for smart water and chemical management. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the most awesome water treatment podcast that is out there. Nation, I am so excited to bring this episode to you. We are going to learn so many things today about an association that is so near and dear to my heart. And of course, I am talking about the Association of Water Technologies. Now, we're going to get to that interview very shortly. But I want to recognize something that took place 75 years ago today, and that was the very first commercial jet airliner flight took place. That was May 30th, 1952. And just think about all the things that we can do because we can get on a plane here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we can go to San Francisco in just 4 hours. It's just amazing. And had the Wright brothers not come along and invented air flight, we wouldn't have been able to do that. And I love that story. And if you have read the book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, in that book, he tells all sorts of stories about how when you start with why, and your why is powerful and meaningful, your outcome is more successful. And one of the stories he tells is about the Wright brothers and somebody else named Samuel Pierpont Langley. And he was in competition with the Wright brothers to invent air flight. And I'm willing to bet you have never heard of Langley before. Now, the Wright brothers, they had no backing. They had no finances. They were used to putting things together themselves, crashing, and figuring out how to fix it. Now, on the other hand, Langley was backed by the United States government. He had a significant financial backing, a very prestigious team. He had engineers, he had mechanics. He had every single reason to come in first for inventing air flight. Well, He didn't. And you probably, again, have never heard of his name. Well, as soon as he heard the Wright brothers were the first to take flight, he quit. He quit because his why was not the same as the Wright brothers. And this is the whole point of the book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And he says the why behind Langley was to be first, was to be the best and the first, where the Wright brothers, they just wanted to prove that flight could take place in a man-made machine. Now, Langley, for all intents and purposes, could have congratulated the Wright brothers and said, great job. Now I have the team to improve on what you just proved. But he didn't do that. He quit. And we never heard his name, maybe to begin with, but definitely not again. So when I think about today was the first commercial jet airliner flight, I have to think about that story. And I have to think about what are all the whys that we do what we do. And if you don't have a good why for what you do, I'm willing to bet you might not be at your best. And if you have a good why, you are propelled by that why, and you want to get better. And folks, the why behind this podcast is to raise the bar in the industrial water treatment industry. And everything we do is driven to raise that bar. And that just goes to show you how powerful having a why is. If you don't have a why behind what you do, I suggest you think about that, because having a why changes everything. And you know what else changes everything? Learning week after week. And of course, our friend James McDonald is going to help us with that very thing. Here is a brand new What Do You Know?
Hello and welcome to What Do You Know? The game show where we find out what do you know about industrial water treatment, drop by drop. So pump up your brain, take out that test kit of knowledge, and prepare to answer this week's question on What Do You Know? Today's question is, what do you call the enclosed space between the drift eliminators and the fan in an induced draft tower? It is called the plenum. The size of the plenum can be significantly different between a cross-flow and counterflow induced draft cooling tower, which can impact the ease of maintenance. I'm James McDonald, and thanks for playing along with us. Stay tuned for next week's episode of What Do You Know?
Scaling Up Nation, one of the things I hear from listeners is they really enjoy hearing what the different conferences, what the different expos are that are taking place. Many are in your backyard, and you get to know about them right here on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. So let's go ahead and go right into that. The 2025 BOMA International Conference is taking place June 28th through July 1st in Boston, Massachusetts. Of course, BOMA is Building Owners and Managers Association. This is a great conference, and if you do anything with commercial buildings, this is a great conference for you to attend. Now, this is the international conference, and chances are you have a local conference that you can attend as well. We're going to have information to get you started on our events page, and you, of course, can find that by going to scalinguph2o.com/events. Also, the Water Environment Federation and the Water Environment Association of Texas is having their joint Water Systems and Stormwater Conference July 15th through 18th in Houston, Texas. And you guessed it, all that information is going to be on our events page. And finally, the 2025 CTI Committee Workshop, the Cooling Technology Institute, is having that workshop July 20th through 23rd in Galveston, Texas. All of this information and more are going to be on our events page. And of course, since we are talking about the Association of Water Technologies today, please make sure that you have on your calendar November 12th through 15th. That's the 2025 Annual Convention and Expo, taking place at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. And folks, if you are an AWT member, you definitely want to be here. I will be there, and it is one of my favorite places to attend. If you go there, you will see why the Broadmoor is second to none in all things customer service. And it's my hope that I see you there. Nation, I am so excited about our interview. Here it is. My lab partner today is John Caloritis of the Metro Group and also the current president of the Association of Water Technologies. John, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Hi, Trace. Thank you very much for this conversation. So glad to be with you and the listeners of the Scaling Up Nation today.
We are very excited to have you. Of course, probably most of our listeners come from the Association of Water Technologies. So we're going to learn all sorts of things about the Association of Water Technologies. Are you ready for that?
I'll do my best, but yes, I'm ready.
John, do you mind letting the Scaling Up Nation know a little bit more about John?
Certainly happy to share whatever I can. I'm 45 years in the industry and approaching retirement. I've spent my entire working career with one company. I waited until later on in life to get more actively involved in the association and wish I'd started earlier. But probably in my late 40s, I became an active participant and have loved every minute of it since.
John, 45 years in the industry. That's amazing. How did you get started?
Very interesting little story. I needed a job.
That helps.
My degree was in chemistry. I knew back in my college days I was not going to work in a lab or be a research assistant. I had a heart for the business community and aspired to be a technical salesperson. Began answering ads for that general category. My dad wanted me to be a doctor. That wasn't going to happen. So I saw a small ad in the Buffalo Evening News. It must have been a 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch advertisement. And the rest is history. I think I sold a pen to my original mentor at my first interview, and that did it.
Sold the pen. I have heard that many a time. Well, John, we're going to talk about the Association of Water Technologies. And you told us how you got started in the industry. How did you get started as a volunteer with AWT?
I think sitting on the sidelines and sitting on my hands for way too long, the guilt began to actually overwhelm me. And I just felt the need to finally give back. Some of it was fear of participation because of fear that it would just gobble up so much of my time. And, we all are so darn busy, we feel like we don't have enough time to give back. But once I took that first step, I joined the cooling committee and sat in the background still as a bit of a wallflower for a year or so, but finally raised my voice, raised my hand, asked a question. And the next thing I knew, I was managing a committee or managing a work group and then a committee. And we just did some wonderful things and the fire was lit within me.
And one day you said, hey, I'm not on the board. I'm going to run for the board.
Somebody asked, and I felt the call to participate in the AWT's leadership body. And again, a very, very satisfying experience so far for me, Trace.
Well, it's my hope today that we can let the listeners of this podcast know a little bit more about the inner workings of AWT, specifically the board. So how does somebody get on the board of directors?
The process requires nomination. There's an annual election process, which most owners' representatives will be familiar with. And the membership actually chooses from a slate of nominated candidates. The board culls that list during their spring meeting to a group of 4 people. And those 4 people get to tell their story to the association, and the association elects new members. Generally speaking, it's 2 folks coming on each year, but not always. Most years, that is the case.
And it's a 3-year position?
The director role is a 3-year position. Those who choose to and are nominated to proceed on the executive track, it becomes a 6-year event.
And that person would be elected president-elect. They would move on to president and then immediate past president.
Right. The officer roles, Trace, as you will recall, are treasurer, secretary, president-elect, president, and then immediate past president. Directors who choose or do not go on after their first year spend 3 years in a director's role. And similarly for our supplier rep, one of the board members is a representative from the supplier community, and that's a 3-year process as well.
And that might be a position that a lot of people don't know about, or maybe they don't understand. What is the purpose of the supplier representative?
The supplier representative does represent that entire community and all of their needs to the board. So without our suppliers, we would not be an association. Let's start with that basic premise. Our suppliers are so meaningful to the association. They represent probably 35 to 40% of our membership. So the supplier voice needs to be made at the board level, and we need to hear from that group. There's an organized set of meetings that's now occurring with the supplier in a supplier task force capacity that allows them to consolidate how they feel about certain things and, what to expect from convention, advertising opportunities. And let me not sell the supplier community short. Many are actually members of our committees as well. So they feel the attraction and the love for the association and the desire to just give back. So most of our suppliers are technologists, and we're happy to have them participate on committees.
And Mike Hyam of McGowan Insurance is our current supplier representative.
He is, and Mike's a wonderful guy doing a great job.
How often does the AWT board meet?
The AWT board meets quarterly, and the executive committee of officers meets monthly in between those meetings. The last board meeting is actually held at convention just before we transition from one year to the next. So 4 meetings a year formally with the entire group.
So the board meets quarterly, but of course there's day-to-day operations that have to take place within the association. How does that work?
Another good question, Trey. So daily operations are handled by the AWT staff. Those folks are sitting in an office in Rockville, Maryland. Listeners who are AWT members would certainly recognize our executive director, Matt Coffendaffer, and of course, the voice of the association, Angela Pike, our member services director.
That Scottish voice everybody recognizes.
Can't miss it. And of course, all other staff members are there making sure that our affairs are professionally managed daily.
And how do the staff members come to play a role at board meetings?
Our executive director facilitates, together with the president, each and every board meeting. Staff, in fact, handles all of the logistics. They get us to where we're going. They handle all of the hotel reservations, meals, and so forth. Of course, the minutes, facilitating the minutes, making sure that the commitments that were made during that meeting turn into action items and that we're all aware of what those action items are. So basically, that's the role. I would say there's a larger strategic value in the executive director's role that Matt brings to the board, and his presence allows us to think more broadly and helps us open up our thinking to what's available before us.
What are some of the key discussions and decisions that are made during a board meeting?
Good question. I can share a few noteworthy topics from this last board meeting. We were together on May 1st and 2nd in Asheville, North Carolina. There were 4 or 5, I think, worthwhile examples of what happens. Let me start with the topic of strategic partnerships. For example, AWT is currently cultivating strategic relationships with aligned associations and even suppliers, the purpose of which is to help us kind of drive the association's engagement and reach. We've been talking with aligned groups who share our values, and we do wish to become the voice and the standard, and we cannot do that without having relationships with other members of the community. Just to tease this out a little bit, I think you and I will feature a conversation about 2 such partnerships later in this conversation.
I am looking forward to that conversation.
By way of example, our members will certainly know about AWT's work with ASHRAE and CTI, and those are both success stories. At this last board meeting, we selected convention sites for a convention and exposition for 2028 and 2029. 28 will be Indianapolis, Indiana, and 29 will be Kansas City. So that was a decision reached to spend a little bit more time on new officer selection and new board member selection. That is, in fact, something that happens at the spring event. So a considerable amount of time and deliberation was devoted to conversations around new officers moving on to the executive committee for next year. And we set the tone and decided upon the slate of candidates for new members coming on as well. So that was a large chunk of one of our days. Those deliberations can be gut-wrenching, but they're very important to have. And we have to put all the information on the table to make the right decisions for the association. Very proud of our group.
And you, of course, will announce who the new board members are at the next convention in Colorado Springs.
Absolutely. And sooner, as soon as they're available, no doubt.
John, anything else you want to mention from the board meeting? I know we have a big announcement, but other than that.
I did want to round out the slate of convention cities just for the record here. So, of course, this coming year, we're in Colorado. After that, Trace, we're in Oklahoma, then Cleveland, and then again, Indianapolis and Kansas City. So we are set through 2029. I commented a bit about new officer and incoming board selection. I did want to mention real quickly the notion of a committee roundtable. This has become a regular part of our board meetings this year. All board members, as part of their responsibilities to the association, actually are a liaison to one or more committees. So this roundtable discussion really is an attempt to make sure that each of our liaisons are bringing to the board the needs of that committee, and then vice versa. We're sharing with those committees what they need to know to be successful. And it's also an opportunity for the board to hear the specifics of what's happening at the committee level. So those have become routine parts of all of our board meetings, I would say, Trace.
I remember when I was on the board, it was almost a battle cry. People would say the AWT is a committee-driven organization. What's meant by that?
That is so absolutely true. Without our committees, we are absolutely going nowhere.
John, anything else you want to share about the most recent board meeting?
Absolutely, Trace. I think I would highlight 3 or 4 things from this board meeting that our readers and listeners might want to know about. In the month of May of 2025, we will have our very first committee town hall event. And this town hall event stemmed from our very successful leadership forum, which was held in Philly after convention in 2024. So we're hyper-focused on committee engagement and empowerment at the board level. And this town hall meeting is really an opportunity for chairs, liaisons, and leaders to share their group experiences thus far in the year, decide where there's overlap, and figure out ways to forge ahead. So that's very exciting. Committee engagement is all about making sure the strategic plan for the association takes hold. And without somebody actually carrying out these actions, we're going nowhere. So we need our committees to execute on the strategic plan. And then, sort of speaking of strategic planning, the board is committed to revisiting that plan every 3 years, and I cannot believe it, but it's already time to engage in that work again. We'll be revisiting the strategic plan here in the summer and probably forge a new one before convention. I think it's also important to mention that, there's a governance cycle that supports the association, and we have some documents that drive what we do, not unlike the U.S. Constitution. The board just completed a 3-year review of our governance docs. And I think it's sad to report that it had not been touched in almost 20 years. So we have now put in place a mechanism by which future boards will review policies, procedures, and all other governance responsibilities on a 3-year cycle. There were a handful of modifications that needed to be approved at this last meeting, and we accomplished just that. I think it's also important to point out that the board decided this year we needed some metrics, and we wanted those metrics to be attached to the goals and aspirations of the association. So we are trying to tie ourselves and our own performance to that of the association. We started that process in February, continued that discussion here in May, and are about to live by some new metrics. So we're excited about that, Trace.
Are you at liberty to say what some of those metrics might be?
Certainly. We want to set the tone for growth in new members. We want to set the tone for the member experiences that we want to have available to us. We want to set the tone for strategic partnerships that are forming. And we do have a handful of initiatives that are just about being ready to roll out. So we want to make sure they take hold also.
Well, the AWT convention is always the highlight of the industry. You just mentioned where we're going to be for the next 5 years. Of course, we're all getting ready for the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, which, nation, let me tell you, if you have not been to the Broadmoor, it is beautiful and probably second to none when it comes to customer service. I'm looking forward to the venue, but I'm also looking forward to the event. What can you share with the Scaling Up Nation about the upcoming convention?
Right. Excellent question, Trace. This is just a perfect segue. You are so right. First of all, speaking about the Broadmoor, we've been there before. And in my mind, this has to be one of the top 5 convention sites in North America. I'm actually told we will have this entire place to ourselves for most of the week. Many important issues affecting our members, and no doubt papers will be delivered that cover things like legislation, business, and technology that include topics like hygiene, energy, ST108, PFAS, and so much more. The convention committee is actually reviewing abstracts right now, so final selections are not quite made. But attendees should expect phenomenal technical content, panel discussions, just a wonderful awards and recognition banquet. And as always, just the networking and a chance to make new memories with new friends from across the country. AWT is second to none when it comes to the networking opportunities that exist.
John, can you share what the abstract selection process is like?
It's almost a full peer-reviewed process, but those who want to deliver a paper submit an abstract for review. The various technical committees and leaders from the association have an opportunity to participate in that. So they select the paper to review, offer comments, vet the paper, look for any commercial aspects to it, and offer comments and feedback that might be appropriate for the person delivering that paper to reach their audience in a better way. So there is a process in place. It's not quite a full peer review. I think we should get there at some point, but it's a good one. And the outcome of that goes back to the convention committee. And then the convention committee selects, the right papers to be delivered as a group. And then it becomes a scheduling issue / nightmare sometimes.
I always have trouble. I want to go to more than one paper in the same time slot. And which one do I go to?
Right. I just don't know what's up yet. So that is a kind of a last minute decision for me too.
I will say now having this podcast, that helps me with that because normally the ones I do see that I like, I'll invite them to expand on their paper here at the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And then the ones that I wasn't able to see, I can conduct my own interview with them.
And you've actually been a paper deliverer over the years, if I recall.
AWT, I've spoken at many conferences, and AWT is one of my favorite conferences to speak at. Of course, I grew up in AWT, so I'm probably partial to that. But AWT just does such a great job. It's not commercial, and you go to some conferences that all you're doing is listening to a commercial, and so many people just appreciate the science and not really the marketing.
Agreed.
John, one of the things that I've had the pleasure of doing, and I'm sad to admit this, for almost 2 decades, is to be a trainer with the Association of Water Technologies. It really is one of my favorite things to do is to train about this industry. AWT delivers second to none technical training. Can you tell us a little bit about what to expect with technical training?
Great point, Trace. You stole my thunder a little bit with respect to your place in the technical training program over the decades, but to share a little bit about what's happening, I think this year, of course, we've rounded out the water treatment training track by introducing the intermediate level course, Program Design and Operation. Happy with the numbers in year one. I know that the group will be sliding content amongst the various courses to be sure that each group receives the appropriate level of training for where they are in their career paths. So we believe this is going to be a perfect complement to what's been there thus far. In addition, the wastewater training is thriving along with the sales training. There has been additional discussion about extending the pretreatment course to a 3-day event, perhaps shifting it to a more hands-on event. Lots of folks asking for that. And of course, the ASSE training, we're thinking about ways to make that available as an online program as well. So, I think stay tuned on all of these fronts, and we'll see how these things pan out over the next year or two.
John, do we have venues picked out for next year's technical training?
We do, Trace. The ever-popular Frisco, Texas will be where we hold trainings next year in both slots. I think we've moved for next year, however, to a February and a September or October event, as opposed to back-to-back February and March.
Oh, that's interesting. So hopefully more people can take advantage.
Right. We want to make sure we can reach some of the owners who can't make one event or can't make the spring to ensure their people get trained if they want them to. So we wanted to think about what it would be like to spread that out. Not everybody hires new people to put through training at the beginning of the year, so try to catch them in a different time slot. Summer's always busy.
Nation, if you're wondering where Frisco, Texas is, it's a suburb of Dallas, extremely easy to get into. There's 2 airports there. And I would say that convention center that's attached right there to the hotel, it works perfectly for the association. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. I'm not sure. I'm happy with the restaurant selection. We had 2 choices and only one was appropriate for all of us.
Yeah, that's all we'll say about that. But Nation, you can use your imagination on what type of restaurant that might be across the street there. But it definitely made conversations very interesting, and we'll just leave it at that. I absolutely love working with the AWT as a trainer, and I want to thank the board for all the attention that they give to the training program. I will put the AWT training up against anybody. It is second to none. We have got some of the best water treaters on the planet in the AWT that are freely giving what they have taken years to learn to our membership.
Absolutely best-in-class training.
Well, in addition to all the great events that AWT puts on, AWT also has a charity arm. And I am so pleased about this because we've been working with World Vision for about 5 years now. And I understand that that's now the new charity partner for AWT. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Certainly, Trace, World Vision is proving in its short tenure as our charity partner is proving to be just a wonderful selection. Our needs around the water requirements of the planet align perfectly. I will say that while in Asheville, not only did we get together to address the needs of the association in a board meeting, but we also had a wonderful opportunity to support the members of that community by participating in some, desperately needed service work. So we were connected through our charity partners at World Vision, where we worked on restoring 2 homes in the Swannanoa area. Very moving and very satisfying to help 2 families really get back to some sense of normalcy. Devastation in the community is still very real, still raw, but there's the beginning signs of hope. So the board was really, really pleased and touched by that opportunity. We spent Friday afternoon in service for the community, and that was great. The next event to report for May again is World Vision's 6K for Water, which will have happened by the time this podcast airs. But teams are forming around the nation and globe to walk, jog, run, or ride just to raise money in support of World Vision's mission.
We'll make sure to put more information out about World Vision. So if you want more information, you can simply go to the show notes page. And rest assured, John, we have been promoting the 6K for Water for the last couple of months. So hopefully we'll get a lot of people involved this year. We will know by the time this show airs.
Excellent.
At the past technical training in Frisco, Texas, I got to meet somebody from the American Boiler Manufacturers Association, and they, of course, were there to meet with you and other board members and see what the technical training was all about. Can you tell us about that new budding partnership?
I sure can. Thank you for bringing this one up, Trace. The ABMA group is as enthusiastic to work with us as we are to work with them. As you might imagine, water treatment has been one of those subjects that just does not always register effectively with the various boiler manufacturers we work with. So there are gaps. Many still don't understand the importance of our trade. And so in service of both member groups, together we'll participate in each other's events. We will write joint papers, address gaps in standards, perhaps put out some new standards, even offer some joint training sessions. So you're really just allowing, 1 + 1 to equal 3 here. It's another very exciting relationship formed and started through the RTO liaison group, and we generally look forward to getting this thing going. Early discussions, memorandum of understanding soon to be signed, but all parties are excited and ready to go. They have a genuine need to know more about our trade, and I think many of our members would say we have a need to improve the standards that are out there for some of these new design boilers, for example. We all might remember the ABMA guidelines that were out since the early 80s. I actually produced a copy for my planner during our meeting with these folks, and they laughed out loud, I think.
John, we recently said that everything that happens in the AWT gets done through committee. What are some current projects that the committees are working on within AWT?
With respect to AWT committees and task forces, almost nothing happens without these volunteers' engagement and just doing a fantastic job. This year, we brought back our membership and marketing committees, specifically to serve and engage members in the AWT experience. Those 2 groups had been at one time very important to the association, but they went stagnant for a few years. And now there's some new enthusiasm around them, and they're doing some very good work. But really, we're proud of all the work that all of our groups are doing. And I'll get in a little bit of trouble here for not remembering everybody or all of the committees, but I will try. Awesome work happening across the association: education, training, education resources, and the technical committee subcommittees. The WOW group is doing some wonderful work with the mentor and mentee program. Our LEG-REG committee is now live with the software that allows us to discern where there are, in fact, with the quorum software to decide where there are, in fact, some regulatory issues that might affect a particular company in a particular state. The certification and the new CWT commission, which is aimed at earning the association the ANSI accreditation. And of course, our RTO liaison groups are doing wonderful work. I wish to highlight charity, business resources, young professionals, the convention committee, And maybe most importantly, our supplier task force. And that group is really coming together in some new and important ways. So very happy with the work of all of our committees, and anybody interested in participating, the water's fine, just jump in.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because I'm sure there are some listeners out there in the Scaling Up Nation that are wondering how they can learn more about all the committees. Is there a particular one that might suit them better than another? Where do they find that information? And if they want to get involved, how do they dip their toe in first?
I would say the best way to get involved is to talk to a committee leader directly. You'll know by the name of the committee where your interests might lie. But when you talk to a committee chair directly, you'll be able to figure out, sure, what projects they're working on, how you might be able to participate. But really, there's nothing stopping somebody from joining with just a general interest. There's always something to do, and you won't be lacking. It's an opportunity to bring new ideas to a group also. So things you've been thinking about in your own jobs or careers that you're wrestling with, bring it to committee. See if there's something that can turn into a project that will help you and your clients engage in the water treatment endeavor more effectively. But whatever your unique interests are within the community, you'll find a place to contribute and make a difference. Again, I would reach out directly to committee chairs to learn about the work they're working on, just to see if there's a match. And I'll say that folks have indicated that anybody's input of time and talent are always paid back in full over time. I would turn that on its head and say it's not paid back in full, but it's multiplied when it comes back to you. So every hour you engage in will contribute so much to your life. And I can't even describe the ways in which I've benefited just from knowing people across the association and working shoulder to shoulder with them on committee work.
John, I can affirm that from my personal experience. I remember when I first joined, I didn't think I had anything to give. There were a lot of smarter people in that room than me. And I found out that, hey, work needs to get done. And the more people that are involved, the easier that is. I started doing some work. By doing that work, I gained some friendships. I gained a lot of trust with people in the organization. They then asked me to do some more things, which led me to becoming a committee chair, which led for me becoming on the board and ultimately president of this organization. And I have got some friendships and mentors and just some tremendous relationships because I did take that first step and say, you know what? I'm a little bit nervous about this. There are a lot of really important people in this room, but I'm going to step up and see if I can help. And John, I am sure glad that I did, because I don't think I'd be where I am right now had it not been for all of the people that I couldn't mention. There's so many of them.
I totally agree. And it's hard to describe until you actually get engaged. Something you just said triggered my memory. I wanted to highlight the work of the young professionals who are helping new members, regardless of where they are in their career paths, find a home within the AWT. So if they're looking for something to do, the Young Professionals Group will make sure you're paired up with a committee that matches your need. And similarly, the WOW committee, the Women of Water, have this wonderful program that links a mentor to a mentee. So whatever your needs may be, you can sign up to be a mentor to new people that don't know our industry yet. Or if you have needs and need some help, you can be assigned a mentor. And that program is really taking off. I think they've matched up something like 30 groups so far.
John, I will make sure to make that as easy as possible for listeners to find. I will put a direct link to all the committee descriptions, and I'll also put a link to that mentor-mentee program. So if somebody listening is wanting to find some more information about that, all they have to do is go to the show notes page, and that will be there.
Thank you, Trace.
John, the board honored me by an invitation to have dinner with you all in Asheville last week. And there was a certain discussion on the board that I was just overwhelmed and delighted by. Would you mind sharing that with the Scaling Up Nation?
Well, we've really saved the best news for last, Trace. So today I am proud to announce the formal rollout of this new strategic partnership between the AWT and the Scaling Up podcast. In a recognized memorandum, Scaling Up will become the official podcast partner of the AWT. Trace and Blackmore Enterprises have been dedicated to the advancement of the association for decades, with you, Trace, having served the industry in many significant ways, including being a past president, board member twice, and of course, one of our legacy technical trainers as an important part of the education training team. I would go so far as to say you've helped support and even light fires in the hearts and minds of many shared members. And for that, we thank you. And this becomes the foundation of our partnership. AWT will now have this terrific new opportunity to extend our reach as the voice of the water treatment industry through the communication resources of scaling up water.
Well, John, that is amazing. Thank you so much for that. I can't tell you how excited I am to hear that and also announce that to the Scaling Up Nation. So, what does that exactly mean for all the listeners out there?
So this partnership between the AWT and Scaling Up should be terrific. We have, of course, left ourselves enough latitude to see how things evolve and to add or alter the way we engage with each other over time. But I would say this interview, of course, represents our first opportunity to connect in this forum. But no doubt some of our committees are also very excited about this partnership. There may be shared content that we can put forth on the airwaves or through the analyst or both. There may be further major announcements to be made, technical happenings to be discussed, educational webinars to host. So we absolutely look forward to seeing what's next and what's possible. So Trace, having heard that, please share your thoughts and feelings with the nation at this point. I'm sure they're all excited to hear from you.
Well, I am ecstatic, and thank you very much, you and the rest of the AWT board. I will say in my heart, we always were the official podcast of the Association of Water Technologies. I, of course, grew up in that association. I wouldn't be where I am now without that association. So thank you for that. I am super excited to look at ways that we can collaborate together. And I must say, when I was on the board and all these great things were coming up from committees and things we were working on in the board, it was always very difficult to get the word out about all of those things. So I'm hoping that we can be a bridge for that, because I think if everybody knew all the things that the AWT could offer and does offer, they would just be delighted with all that reference material. So I'm hoping to help get that message out with this partnership.
This could be the missing link and the opportunity to really make a huge splash.
Well, John, AWT is always on the move and they are looking forward in their vision. What are some things that we can expect next year?
Sure. So the AWT, of course, exists to support its members, and everything we're doing is aimed at that primary target. As I said earlier, Trace, we're really on the cusp of some very important initiatives to get rolling here. High level of enthusiasm around growing the CWT brand. We view this as one of the AWT's crown jewels. The possibility of ANSI certification is right around the corner. The group is about to submit their application for that process. So we think this happens here in 2025, and we go live very soon. But ANSI certification is essential to helping that brand be recognized formally, as opposed to the industry just saying, hey, we've deemed that you are in fact a true professional. This is a third-party acknowledgement from a very reliable source and well-recognized source. In fact, our friends across the pond in the UK Water Management Society are also very excited about the prospects of participating in the AWT and CWT movement. I think next up are the RTO relationships, and those will continue to grow and bear fruit as AWT stands ready to offer industry-recognized positions on important issues. Trace, you mentioned our training programs, and we had a conversation about that. Those programs should help all new water treatment professionals that enter this industry the opportunity to learn to love their new careers in this challenging and technical environment we're engaged in. I spoke a bit about the Quorum tool, and this is the LegReg Committee's software that will begin to produce lists of regulations that will affect our members in each of their respective states, as well as federal regulations. An outcropping of this should be and will be the association's movement to do advocacy and outreach. So not only can we report to our members what's happening in their states, we hope to come up with a platform that allows us to actually visit with the regulatory folks and make a difference, engage with them directly. So, more heads up about the regulations that affect them, et cetera. And with that knowledge, we can make a big difference. So overall, Trace, more engagement, better partnerships, and stronger ties between us all.
John, what is one thing you wish everybody knew about the Association of Water Technologies?
Trace, a great question. I think something that's very new and still finding its legs is this new category of membership for our individual members. We had our very first year of individual membership came off very well. We had 100 new members. We think that the AWT can reach the individual members in as significant a way as we do with our company members. There's a lot of folks out there who need the support of a group like ours, and we hope that we meet that need.
All right, John, well, we've learned a lot about the AWT. Now we're going to learn a little bit more about you with some lightning round questions. Are you buckled up? Are you ready?
I'm buckled up. I don't know that I'm ready, but we'll give it a go.
I'm sure you will do fine. Question number one, if you could go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as an AWT volunteer, what advice would you give yourself?
I would have said to myself, John, you should have started at least 10 years earlier. And as I indicated earlier, this has been one of the most significant and personally satisfying experiences of my entire business life. And I'm so glad that I got started. It's better late than never, but here we all are.
John, as a past president of this organization, I know it does take a little bit of time to be president. So I want to personally thank you for you giving that time and making sure that the organization is getting better under your leadership. Question number two, what are the last few books that you've read?
Well, I am absolutely not an avid reader these days, but it's something I will look forward to in retirement one day, and we'll make a list of books that I must read. But I'm happy to have some fun with this question. So book number one, I'm going to go with the TR and TM. I found myself engaged in the TR and TM as we were working on the program design and operation.
So just so everybody knows, that's the technical reference and training manual that the AWT puts out.
Correct, sir. And then similarly, book number two happens to be the AWT's governance documents. And then book number three was the O&M manual in my furnace, which was on the fritz in late winter.
There it is. Did you get it fixed?
Got it fixed.
Well, it was a good manual then. Question number three, when they make a movie about the life of John Caloritis, who plays John?
Oh my gosh. Well, as a younger man, random people would actually walk up to me and accuse me of looking just like Chevy Chase. So yeah, why not? Except that he's probably pretty scary looking now and maybe a little older.
I love that. I love Chevy Chase. That'd be a great role. Last question. If you had the ability to talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be with and why?
A little gap here, as potentially controversial as this one may be. I would certainly appreciate talking with President Donald J. Trump. I would be interested in knowing how one person can develop skin so thick that he could withstand the waves of conflict, lawfare, and abuse he took at the hands of his political opponents. I just found it truly amazing that one person was able to handle such an onslaught.
I don't care who you are. You've got to recognize that he's able to take things that most people cannot, and that's an ability that most people don't have.
It speaks to resiliency and sharpening those skills to be resilient.
Well, John, I want to thank you for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. I want to thank the board for our new partnership with the podcast. I can't wait to get started on that and sharing with the Scaling Up Nation even more things about the AWT.
Absolutely. Thank you again for this opportunity, Trace, and we look forward to great things together. Have a great rest of the week.
I cannot be more excited. I could not be more humble to hear that the Association of Water Technologies has officially declared the Scaling Up H2O podcast as the official podcast of the AWT. And Nation, what that means for you is that you are going to get even more information about things that are coming out with the Association of Water Technologies. Of course, you have come to count on the Scaling Up H2O podcast for not only information about the AWT, but all the other water organizations that we help support. That is not going to change. We're going to be your one-stop shop for everything that is going on in the industrial water treatment community. And it's my hope that you will know even more about the Association of Water Technologies. You know, one of the things I heard that the board and the AWT is working on is trying to bolster the Certified Water Technologist program. As you all know, as a listener of this podcast, that is one of my favorite programs out there. I thoroughly believe that there are so many people listening to this podcast that could get their Certified Water Technologist designation. They just don't have the confidence to go and sign up for that exam. And then after they sign up for it, then they don't have the confidence to tell people that they did that because, oh my gosh, what if they don't pass it? Nation, it's my hope after you've been listening to this podcast that you are bolstering that courage and that you know how important it is to tell people that one, you want to take that exam, and two, that you have a date to take that exam. My number one piece of advice for every listener out there, whether you're taking the CWT exam or any other certification exam, is to work backwards. Set the date and then make sure that your study plans work up until that date. So many people say, I'm going to start studying for it and then I'm going to sign up for it. And that never comes. Trust me, there is magic when you turn the tables on that timeline and you say, on this date in 6 months, on this particular day, I'm signing up to take this exam. And now all of your plans are working towards that day, and you have a definite day where you are going to that testing center and you are taking the exam. My second piece of advice that I will give you is don't be too hard on yourself that you absolutely positively must pass the exam. Of course, we all want to pass it on the first try, but let me tell you, most people pass it on the second try because there's so many more things that are going for you. Think about it. The first time you take it, every single thing about that process is brand new. And you are nervous about all of the things that are on the test. Well, the second time that you take it, you now have the experience of the first time. Now, you're still going to be nervous about all the things that you're going to be tested on. And by the way, it will be a brand new generated test, but you will have the memories of the first experience that will allow you to probably think deeper into some of the questions you might not be able to answer at first. And you will be able to have more reasoning power because of those experiences. So my advice is go ahead and sign up for the exam, work backwards, and don't put so much pressure on yourself to guarantee that you pass it right on the first time. Do your best to try to do that, but it's not so bad if you have to take it a second time. Folks, this is a difficult exam. They do not give CWTs away. And when you pass that examination, when you finish all of the requirements to get your CWT, you need to be proud of that because that is a very elite designation that you did every bit of what you were supposed to do in order to earn that. And it's my hope that you have, if you are not already, getting the Certified Water Technologist as a designation on your list of to-dos. And to help you with that, I do have a free course that I will get you started with the AWT's booklet number 1 on everything you needed to know about signing up for the CWT exam. I will take you through that resource and give you a little sneak peek of my paid course where I go through some things you probably want to study to make sure you are a well-rounded water treater, and also some test-taking techniques that will help you make sure that you are going through each and every question properly and not choosing an incorrect answer because you did not read all of the answers properly. I'm hoping that that gives you that little bit of boost for signing up for the exam so you can get your CWT. Nation, I want to thank the AWT for, again, announcing the partnership between the AWT and the Scaling Up H2O podcast. John, thank you for all that you're doing to lead the organization and coming on this podcast. I know before I got involved with the AWT Board of Directors, I had questions about how the board works, how the association works. And now I think because you came on and shared with the Scaling Up Nation all the things in volunteer governance that we do in the association, I think a lot of people are going to understand a lot better. And it's my hope that a lot of people are going to step up and volunteer for some of the positions that we were talking about during today's interview. As I mentioned, I'm going to make that as easy as possible. Just go to the show notes page for episode 422, and you can just simply click on those links. It will take you right to the AWT page where you can find out about each and every committee And I know if you are like me, you are thinking, what do I have to offer to these prestigious committee members? But folks, let me tell you, you have plenty to offer, and there's plenty of work to work on, and many hands lighten the load. And let's just face it, they need hands. And chances are you have a lot more to offer than you are giving yourself credit for. I would take John's offer to talk to that committee chair. I'll make that as easy as possible for you by putting those links up there. And I tell you, when you start getting involved, you will learn things about not only the organization, but about our industry that you would have never known before. When you put yourself into rooms where you are not the smartest person, that is your key to learning things about things you didn't even know to ask about. I am proof of that. So many people have poured knowledge into me, and I've learned things that I probably never had any right to learn. But because I was in the right rooms, I learned those and I got better because of that. It's my hope that you have a similar experience. And folks, that all starts with investigating which committee might be right for you. And is there something that you can help the AWT or any organization that you might be working with out by you volunteering? Nation, I hope you go out there, you make a lofty goal, and you set a date, and you get that done by working backwards. Whatever that goal is, start working on it today. Have a great week, folks. There's no doubt about it. Taking the Certified Water Technologist examination is one of the most challenging tasks you'll do in your water treatment career. But I'm here to help you with the first step. And that first step is my free gift to you, and that is a free CWT prep course. That's right. If you go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep, you'll get a portion of the paid course where you can see the type of materials that you'll be working with if you decide to sign up for the full course. Again, this is my free gift to you to get you on the journey to getting your Certified Water Technologist designation. Go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep today.